Former National Security Advisor John Bolton, he says he's willing to testify in the president's impeachment trial if he's subpoenaed. Now, Bolton is one of 4 witnesses Democrats have said that they want to hear from as they clash from Republicans over how to proceed.
Congressman Ro Khanna of California suggested that Chief Justice John Roberts decide, saying, quote, he would have absolutely no debate from any of the Democrats. Here to weigh in on the latest in the impeachment saga is Scott Dworkin, co-founder of the Democratic Coalition and series editor of a great series, Meet the Candidates 2020. Great to see you, Scott.
Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So let's just start with these initial developments. There was a lot of sort of excitement on the Democratic side when John Bolton said he would testify. This may be less of a significant development as initially appeared, though. McConnell has tight control over the votes in the Senate. He likely would not call him to testify. The president could exert executive privilege over his testimony. So just what do you make of that particular development? Is it significant or not?
I think it's a game. I think Bolton is playing a dangerous game. It's the normal game that we see from people where they have a book coming out and they want to promote it, and so they have controversy, so they try and put it out there.
Yeah.
And so we've seen this on repeat over and over again from Trump people. I think this is just the same, because if it wasn't a game...
So you think he's just trying to get in the headlines?
He could either testify at any time he probably wanted in either the Senate or the House. He could probably send out a press release if he wanted to. He could go on, Today's Show or...
Sure.
morning.
We'd be happy to have him on here.
Right. That's what
Yeah.
So like he could do any of that, but he chose not to. He chose to do the game of like, I'd be willing to testify if subpoenaed, and it's like, well, why do you have to be subpoenaed?
But that's the thing, Scott. I mean, isn't so much of this just a farce? Because the way I look at this is that, okay, yeah, you might be right, honestly. This could just be attention grabbing. But the truth is that Democrats don't actually want John Bolton to testify. Because if he does testify, then Hunter Biden and Joe Biden are going to get subpoenas. And that is going to be bad for everybody. And it seems increasingly that this thing is not headed towards articles of impeachment actually being transmitted to the Senate. So, I know you have been a huge proponent of this. Was it all worth it if it ends up dying in the House?
Yes, yeah. I believe so, because there were a lot of truths that have come forward because of it. There's a lot of evidence that we've been able to uncover, and I think
the public hasn't moved at all. I mean, if ultimately, so here's my thing. Hear me out.
Sure.
So if it comes out in the House, if it just dies in the House, it was a purely political move from the beginning, which I believe it is. Then, from that perspective, politically, nothing has happened. I mean, the candidates have been forced to talk about something that they don't care about. The voters don't care about it. People have hardened increasingly. A lot of the country's time has been, frankly, wasted. And nothing's going on. So, why was it worth it if it was political from the beginning?
The truth is worth it. Getting to the truth matters. And I think that there's so much misinformation and propaganda out there nowadays that putting the spotlight on the truth is important. And I think when I was weighing it, the day of the election night is when we started the first impeachment campaign.
Right, but that's my point.
But we did it because we knew that he was going to be sworn in and be in violation of the Constitution as of day one, and we had to be prepared.
And you were talking about the emoluments clause, which I actually think the argument on that is very different,
well,
right?
And that's actually, as a progressive, that's my critique, is of all the many terrible things that he's done, institutionalized cruelty, in violation, basically using the government as a personal piggy bank, all of it, now potentially getting us into war with Iran in violation of our own law and international law, of all the things that he's done. I don't think what he did with Ukraine was okay. I'm not good with it. But to me, it's such a smaller issue than so many of the other pieces. And it's very telling to me that the one that triggered the Democratic establishment to actually go forward with impeachment had to do with protecting one of their own in Joe Biden, and had to do with pushing the national security state, this aggressive, hawkish national security state consensus.
When we moved forward on it, I took what we can get. And so I was happy with the fact that they were moving forward with impeachment. I thought that it was going to be a little bit broader. But
so you don't love the process either, ultimately?
I believe that if someone were to be impeached, they should be impeached for every crime they committed, and they should be evaluated based on everything, not just on a small portion of it.
And that's what I mean. From a political perspective, Scott, do you think that you're better off heading into the general election because of impeachment?
I think, because he'll be exposed for the criminal that he is.
But he has, if we accept that premise, the American public does not accept that. Right. So that has not happened. And here's the other thing. All of the candidates are not making this case. They're talking about health care, the economy, immigration. If you look at the ranked number of issues for Democrats, impeachment is like number 10.
Right.
Same with Russiagate, right? So why was it worth it to that point? I mean, again, you have the media on your side. You have everything on your side. And then this is what we've chosen to obsess the American public over. I don't see how you can be. I mean, Trump is at the same level of approval that Barack Obama was at this time, headed into his general election. How could you possibly say that this has made it easier to defeat him?
Well, it's more. It's building up a stockpile of information and making sure that, again, we can present that given the right time. There's no, we work with what we're presented, and there's no easy way to kind of present the truth to the American people without it being a little bit boring and not as, provocative for everybody. But the focus needs to be on, I agree, but Democrats need to focus on, the ones that are running need to focus on what we stand for, how we're different, how we set ourselves apart. And those differences are very clear, because it's like, oh, you want to lock kids up in cages. We want to separate, we don't want to separate the families. We want to release them from those cages.
But don't you think it's a zero-sum game, Scott? Is that you have, so let's say you want to make that impeachment case, or immigration. I'm happy to debate that all day long about what's going on at the border. But I don't think I've talked about immigration or the border on the show for like 3 months, because all we're talking about is impeachment. I mean, and that's what I think is part of the issue, is that, okay, let's have the substantive debates on healthcare, on immigration, and so much. But when the media's attention is so focused on this, I just don't see it, right? I mean, and what if we accept that premise about political damaging? Do you think it was acceptable for the Republicans to impeach Bill Clinton for politically damaging reasons in the 1990s?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's when there's.
I mean, that's intellectual consistency. I respect it,
dishonesty may be like the biggest and most corrupt act that you can make, when you're lied to the American people about something, and Trump's done that extensively, obviously over 10,000 or however many times. So I just don't buy the theory that it wasn't worth it, or whether or not we gauged it politically. I think that it was important because it was something that we needed to do. And I know that sounds cheesy, or like we have some kind of game on the back end of it, but I wasn't thinking about what's going to happen in November when we started this. I didn't think about, what is going to be the backlash from this? Are we going to lose the election? Because like with any other candidates, you don't choose, is this the best route to impeach him? Is this the best thing, that we can itemize here? You choose, and you don't choose the candidate that you think can win. And that's how you lose. And
I do think that's a principled case that I hear, and that I think a lot of people genuinely hold, is that, look, there's an accountability that needs to occur, right? There needs to be a black mark put on the record of saying this person was in violation of our laws, no person is above law, and so we did what was necessary. I worry, though, that is not the ultimate learning that comes from this, when he'll say, I was exonerated by the Senate, if it even goes to trial in the Senate. That's my view. But I do want to hear from you, as someone who is in favor of this process, who's excited about this process. What do you want to see happen next? What do you think Pelosi's next move should be? Should she actually submit articles to the Senate for a trial if she's unhappy with the sort of terms that McConnell is willing to accept?
I think as much as she can, she should get guarantees on what the process is going to be. And I'm not sure how far the speaker is willing to take it or able to take it. But I think that she should take it to the limit, because if you look at the other side, what would Republicans do in this scenario if it were a Democrat? They'd be doing the same exact thing, probably even further.
Yeah.
So I think we need to explore every single option. Everything's on the table, and I think the speaker knows that.
I personally think she should draw a hard line. Say, if we don't get this person and this person and this person, forget it. We're moving on. We've said our piece. If we're not going to get a real trial in the Senate, forget it.
I agree with that.
Oh. Interesting development, Scott. You're a good sport and intellectually honest. So
always glad to have you, Scott. Thank you.
I appreciate it always.
Yeah, always, man. Next on Rising, according to a 2019 YouGov poll, 70% of millennials would vote for a socialist.
But what has led to the rise of socialist ideals in the United States? Democratic Socialists of America National Political Committee member, long title there, but a good one, Megan Svoboda shares how the organization is capitalizing on all that growing enthusiasm. That when Rising continues.